We have a really exciting guest today, and I will let him introduce himself. But this is a really great opportunity for you all to kind of learn about the sales profession in general and kind of demystifying the sales profession because I'm sure all of us have um, kind of some preconceived notions of what sales may be or look like. And kind of learn from our special guests career path and journey towards becoming a CEO and co-founder of this awesome organization. So, Sahil, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, well, with such a kind introduction, I'm left with nowhere to go but down. So I'm gonna do the best that I can to serve you all. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm Sahil. I am, as Caitlin mentioned, the CEO and co-founder of a company called Bravado. And Bravado is an organization that helps students who are interested in a career in sales be able to find a mentor and be able to understand what makes a career in sales attractive for you once you graduate from school. What I was hoping to present at the outset was a little bit about my personal journey in sales. Why it is that I chose to. Oh, that's exciting. Oh, hello. Oh, Caitlin, I
We can
think
hear you.
you. Oh, wow. Hello. All of a sudden,
Awesome.
I'm here.
Sorry
Technical
for the technical
technical difficulties
difficulties.
solved. Amazing. Hello, everyone. All right, now I'm feeling great. But yeah, what it is that led me to a career in sales, what the experience has been like, and why you might want to consider a career in the same. So I guess for starters, I can take a moment to just introduce myself and explain a bit about my background. So I'm Sahil. I was born and raised in San Francisco. Like many of you, I'm a first generation child of two immigrant parents. My parents came to the U.S. from India just a couple years before I was born. But this was back in like the mid to early 80s, so I guess quite a while ago. My parents were not part of the tech generation boom that I think most Indian families come from. My father worked in restaurants and in hotels, and so it was we were very much your kind of classic come to America with very little and hope to be able to make a life here sort of family. Which I think is a pretty rare career path for sales because most people who come from that background, not necessarily the first choice career path for folks is to hop into sales. But I'd love to explain a bit more about why that might actually be a good idea. So we can get started with, I guess, just a little bit of background. So when I started my career in sales, which was in 2008, so I guess, wow, I feel old saying that, 12 years ago. I didn't know what a quota was. I didn't know what a commission was. I didn't know what a cold call was. I had very little understanding of what a career in sales would look like. And if I thought about a career in sales, I think the best comparison points I would have had is, someone who sells cars on a car lot, or somebody who is selling like cell phone cases from a kiosk in a mall. So it was very much driven by what you might call consumer sales, where you're like selling to individual people. And what I didn't know was that there's this entire industry which has 6 million people in it. It's one of the largest industries in the world. It's certainly one of the largest industries in the US, which is what is known as B2B, or business to business sales. So in this instance, you're not selling to Caitlin per se, but you're selling to an organization, you're selling to a company. That type of sales process tends to be very different than what like retail sales or consumer sales. Um, and in many ways can be a lot more lucrative of an opportunity for your career. It can be a place where you can earn, six figures, even mid to high six figures, without needing necessarily needing a college degree, without necessarily needing to have like a master's degree, without needing to be in school for years. But it's a meritocratic profession where you're able to come in and based on your own work ethic, your own skill set, be able to make it forward, which I think is just a really exciting opportunity for everyone from all walks of life. When I first got into sales, admittedly, it wasn't considered to be the most prestigious of career paths. I like to joke that, up until I made my very first large commission check, my parents were very surprised that I chose a career in sales. And it's just not, and even for myself, I didn't really understand, that I would be in sales for a long time. I thought like, oh, maybe I'll do this for like a year or two until I figure out what I really want to do. But it turned out that to be like just an incredible profession that I've really enjoyed over the course of the last 12 years, and has led me to not only have a really exciting career where I've done sales for a variety of high growth tech startups, but also have had the opportunity now to found my own company. And many of the skill sets that I learned in sales were instrumental to helping me be able to be a successful entrepreneur. So yeah, I guess I'm super excited to be here to talk about this. And Caitlin, I'll let you kind of moderate away and tell me what you want to talk about.
Sure. So you mentioned, founding your own company, and I'm sure there's a lot of things that go into that. So could you just briefly describe what Bravado is and kind of how it came about? Yeah.
Sure. So Bravado is a professional network for sales. I founded the company a little short of 3 years ago. It'll be 3 years in July, so I guess 2.5 years ago or so. The the reason why I started this company is because I'd spent many years in sales, and I understood that most kids don't grow up wanting to be in sales. Like if you think about what most folks want to do when they graduate from college, people want to be doctors, they want to be engineers, they want to be lawyers, they want to, they have these aspirations. Very few people are like, oh, I want to be a salesperson. Like that's not the sort of thing that, but in reality, sales is likely, in my estimation, I think sales is the best first job you can have out of school. And it's because it teaches you many of the fundamentals that you need in order to be a successful business executive. And many successful business executives that got their career started in sales. I'm sure many of you are familiar with who Warren Buffett is. He's one of the richest people in the world. He started out as a traveling salesperson. He started his career doing sales, and it was because he was on the ground talking to customers and selling that he really understood how business worked. Mark Cuban, who you may have seen from Shark Tank, the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, is also a very famous person who started his career in sales. Sheryl Sandberg, who's the chief operating officer of Facebook, started her career in sales. Howard Schultz, who's the founder of Starbucks. If you've ever been into a Starbucks before, you'll know that Starbucks takes a lot of pride in the experience that they deliver to their customers. You can go anywhere and get a cup of coffee, but if you walk into a Starbucks, whether that's a Starbucks in Topeka, Kansas, or whether that's in San Francisco, California, or anywhere else in the country, or heck, anywhere else in the world, you're in a Starbucks. The lighting, the signage, the people in the green aprons. He learned all of that because he was a salesperson, and he understood that the customer experience and the customer journey really matters when you're starting a new business. And so I guess, many of the lessons that I've learned in sales have translated to my experience as an entrepreneur. In terms of what Bravado does, I think I mentioned this briefly, but we have partnerships with over 25 different universities across the country. And what we do is we run sessions not too dissimilar to the one that you're attending right now, where we educate folks on why a career in sales is a great opportunity. And then I don't expect you to take my word for it per se. I mean, I'm the guy with the sales hat on, so you're probably suspicious of whether I'm biased or not. correct answer is, of course, I'm biased. We're all biased as humans. But what I would encourage you to do is take the facts that you learned today, assess them yourself. And if it's interesting, we offer a mentorship program where you can get paired with someone who's an experienced sales professional in the field today. You know, someone who's either a vice president of sales or a director of sales at a company who can mentor you and show you what it's like to really be in the field in the seat today. And the reason we founded Bravado was because that didn't exist for me. You know, I didn't know about a career. No one in college taught me that there was such a thing as a sales career. When I graduated, if you'd asked me if I wanted to be a salesperson, I would say no. Even as I was walking into my job in sales, I would have said no. And for many years, I was in denial about the fact that I was in sales. It wasn't the thing that like makes everyone so proud at a party. You know, you walk into a party and someone's like, "Oh, I'm a doctor," and people are like, "Ooh, doctor," you know. You walk in and you're like, "I'm a salesperson." No one's like, "Ooh, salesperson," you know. They're like, "Really, you're in sales?" And quite frankly, I just think that that's bullshit. I mean, sales is it's the most critical part of any company. Talk to any CEO, any founder, anyone who runs a business, whether it's a small mechanic shop, whether it's a 3-location restaurant, or whether it's the CEO of Facebook. You know, you ask anybody at all, what is the most important thing to a business? They'll say it's customers, right? Everybody will agree that customers are most important. Who deals with customers? Right? Like if customers are the most important thing, who deals with customers? Salespeople, right? Like it's the salesperson that gets you customers. It's the salesperson that then treats those customers well. And it's a salesperson who gets the revenue that the company needs in order to be able to run. So if you run a mechanic shop, you run a big technology company, you run a restaurant, it doesn't matter. Everybody knows that customers is the most important thing to a business. And so the people that are responsible for dealing and working with those customers tend to be pretty important too. And so sales tends to be a really, really important part of every company's structure. And yet it's not perceived that way from the outside. And so that's why we built Bravado, which was a company that's designed to take a flashlight and kind of shine it inside of organizations and show you that, in fact, sales is one of the, if not the most important department at a company. And if you want to be close to customers and you want to be close to revenue and money, that sales is the perfect place for you.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And sales is definitely in every single industry. And I know in the Bay Area, there's a lot of opportunities here. So thank you for sharing Bravado. And students, if you want to Google it, you totally can. So just kind of a follow up about just the sales profession in general. What do you think is a common misconception about sales related roles?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we don't have great role models in sales. You know, when you think about sales, like if I asked you, let me ask you a question. What's a movie about sales? Do you know any, Caitlin? Do you know any movies about sales?
Not off the top of my head.
So there's a number of movies and students, you're probably familiar with some of these. If you've watched Wolf of Wall Street, that tends to be
Mm.
one that people equivocate to sales. There's a movie called Glengarry Glen Ross, which is famous for Alec Baldwin standing there with the chalkboard and it says always be closing. It's like ABC, this famous scene that you've seen. There's a movie called Boiler Room. There are all of these portrayals of sales. And I think about like a movie in which there's a sales, like a used car salesperson in the movie, you know, what is that person like? I'll tell you what that person's like. That person's most likely white, most likely old, almost always certainly is a male, and is likely someone who's like kind of, let's just say that the person has a loose relationship with the truth, you know, is trying to do something shady in some way to try and screw the customer and like make more money or whatever. Salespeople are portrayed in this incredibly unflattering negative light, and the entire profession is portrayed that way as well. And so what I think, and you think about the stigma or the misconceptions of sales, First of all, who you see is what you believe. And so if all you see are a bunch of like white dudes in suits, then you might imagine that that's what sales is all about. I'm here to tell you as a chubby brown guy with a beard that like, that is not the reality of sales. You know, there's a ton of women in sales. In fact, there's many studies out there that show that female sales professionals are more successful than male sales professionals. There's a tremendous amount of minorities who are in sales. There's tremendous representation from the LGBTQ community in sales, not as much as we should have, of course, and we're still trying to make strides. But this is an area where a lot of folks self-select out of a career in sales because they're like, oh, I'm not a salesperson. Like, I wouldn't want to go lie to a bunch of customers. I don't want to like knock on people's doors. And so people think that like what sales is like being pushy and like and bothering people and like grabbing people as they're running out of the store to try and get them to buy something. And let me just tell you, that is not sales, right? That's all the jokes you've heard about sales, but that is not what the profession's like at all. What the profession's really like is you do a lot of research on companies that have an interest in your product or a need for it. You then sit down with business executives, with decision makers, with business leaders at companies to have conversations about their business problems. So maybe I can use a real example for this, and it's something that I think is going to be right up everyone's alley. I'm sure students, you're probably familiar with the job site Glassdoor. If you're not, you should go check it out. It's a place where you can go and read reviews of what it's like to work at a company. So I was one of the first 25 employees at Glassdoor. And when I joined, you know, we were selling to HR departments. We were selling to companies that were trying to recruit talent on Glassdoor. And so in my first 3 months, I got an opportunity to sit down and have meetings with the VP of Human Resources or the chief people, like the very top executives at Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Facebook, Cisco, JP Morgan Chase, Ford, Goldman Sachs, like basically a who's who of massive companies. I was able to sit down with them and say, hey, who are you looking to hire? What are your problems? What are your challenges around hiring talent? Oh, you're looking for software engineers. Oh, you're looking for salespeople. Oh, you're looking for operations folks. Oh, you're looking for customer support. Well, where are you looking for these roles? How much are you spending right now? What has been working? What's not been? I knew how, like, out of the, let's just say the Fortune 100, I probably had meetings with like 20 to 30 of them in my first few months while I was there. I knew how the biggest, best companies in the world were hiring. And I was 23 years old, right? And so the wealth of information that you get from sitting down and meeting with business leaders, understanding strategy, I basically became an expert in recruiting at 23, not without having to hire a single person or like spend years being an HR leader, because I was having conversations with the very top executives who were responsible for running human resources at these companies. And that knowledge is something that has enabled me today as an entrepreneur to know how to hire the best people. So I learned how to recruit people because I sold a recruiting software. And I think that like mentality of sales is a pathway for you to get like an MBA in whatever profession you're selling into is something that makes it an incredibly lucrative and attractive opportunity.
Yeah, that sounds really awesome. And I personally definitely have not thought of sales in that way. So thank you. I
It's
think
okay. I
also,
didn't either before I got into it. You know, I mean, that's why we started
uh-huh,
Bravado, is because for most students
right.
who are listening, they're probably like, what does all this mean? You know, like I don't understand like this all sounds really interesting, but like this isn't at all what I thought sales is like. And that's what I'm trying to convey, is that kind of ignore what you've heard about sales through like pop culture or your friends, unless you actually have friends that are in sales, who are doing, especially if it's technical sales. If you know friends who are doing tech sales, then I think you have a good portrayal of what the world is like. But if you don't, then I would honestly say it's probably best for you to ignore everything you've heard and come check out our mentorship program and get yourself and again, it's free. We're not selling you anything. It's a free program that we built. So if you're interested, we'd love to pair you with a mentor and help you find a great career in technology.
Yeah, I think mentorship is extremely valuable. And at SRA, we have mentorship programs, but I think it's definitely the best way to really learn about various positions or industries by actually asking real people who have actually done these things. I think there's also kind of a misconception about what a salesperson is like. And you kind of touched on this. And I think for myself included, the idea is someone that's really extroverted and can talk to people. How would you describe kind of some common characteristics amongst sales professionals?
Yeah, so being extroverted is not, in fact, being extroverted is often a hindrance to being a great salesperson. I know that sounds really crazy, right? But I'm being very specific with my words right now. Being extroverted makes you a worse salesperson because what it does is it lets you do the one mistake that all bad salespeople make that no good salesperson ever makes. The reality is sales is all about listening to people and understanding what they need. I could sell you anything in the world, Caitlin, if I knew what you needed. But if I don't know what you need, it's impossible to sell you anything. I couldn't sell you anything because I have no need. I could spend 20 minutes going on and on about how I have the most amazing steak and you can eat this great steak dinner and like, oh my gosh, it's charred perfectly and it goes great with this like mashed potatoes and you got to buy the steak. And then if I find out 20 minutes later that you're a vegetarian, that I've wasted a lot of time. It would have been a lot better if I shut up and asked you, hey, Caitlin, what do you like to eat? And you're like, well, man, my favorite food is bean sprout. I don't know what vegetarians eat. Green peas, whatever, carrot. And so my favorite food is carrots and green peas. I'm like, oh, interesting. You like carrots and green peas. Maybe I should suggest something that's vegetarian instead of suggesting a meat item. And so the conception that like being funny or being extroverted or being willing to be pushy, these are actually not the right characteristics for a great salesperson. There's 3 traits that makes people exceptional at sales. The first trait is that you have to be extremely curious. See, people love to tell you things. This is actually a great trick that we've learned in sales for many years is that, oh, Caitlin, you seem frozen. Am I frozen or are you frozen? It's hard to tell who's frozen. I'm suspicious it might just be Caitlin and you can, oh, no, we're back.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, sorry, we froze for a second there. No. Okay, so the first is curiosity. So one of the tricks that you learn in sales is that people love to tell you about themselves. All you got to do is ask. And there's a difference between asking and then not listening to the answer and asking and truly listening. So sales, if you're truly curious, and if I'm like, hey, Caitlin, tell me about your job. Tell me about what you do at your organization. I'm sure you'd love to tell me what you do because people love to talk about what they do. We're all kind of a little bit, let's just say it, self-absorbed in that way. And so because people love to tell you what, people will answer questions, the best salespeople are able to ask really thoughtful, really insightful questions. So if you're someone who loves to listen to other people, you're curious about learning about them, you're curious about learning about lots of different things, then sales is that's like the number one characteristic. The second characteristic is, and this is true, I think, for many professions, but it's especially true in sales, is you just got to be willing to work hard. Sales is one of those jobs where there's a lot to do and there's a lot in your control. You know, it kind of I think a good like corollary to this is think of something like being a mechanic, right? You can't work that hard at being a mechanic unless there's a car in the shop. You know what I mean? Like if there's a car there, then you can work really hard. But if there's no car there, I mean, yeah, maybe you can do like some marketing or whatever. But if you're a mechanic, like you can't you can only work on whatever problem the car has. You know, if like the car's tire is flat, you need to fix the car. You can't be like, oh, I'm going to redo the engine today, you know? But in sales, you have tremendous autonomy over your life, right? You can walk in and say, today, I'm going to go sell to car companies. And you can walk in and start calling up and researching car companies and trying to sell to them. next week you can walk in and say, I saw this ad for this new shaving cream product. Maybe I'm going to look up everyone who makes shaving cream and sell to them. So like you have tremendous autonomy in what you can do. With great freedom comes great responsibility. People who are great salespeople are able to harness that and actually like work smart, work hard, like dig into industries. So curiosity, hard work. And maybe the last one is going to be most surprising to people because of what you think of around sales, but you've got to be able to build trust with folks. Being able to be trusted is such a critical skill set, which means more than just being honest, although honesty is a component of building trust. It's also your ability to come across as being credible, being able to come across as an expert in your industry. It's being thoughtful with your words. It's being patient. It's having done your homework. So there's a lot of reasons why people trust someone versus don't trust someone else. And so you learn a little bit of psychology along the way as well, of like how trust is built and how relationships are built. But I would say the three skill sets that are needed or characteristics are curiosity, / great listener, hard work, and the ability to be trusted. And so if you're someone who your friends trust you a lot and they listen to your recommendations, if you're like really curious and love to learn and you're willing to work hard, I mean, you will make an awesome salesperson, right? Nothing about being extroverted and pushy and this and that. Like none of those characteristics actually matter.
Yeah, that's great to know. And I feel like a lot of our students would definitely meet those characteristics, which is encouraging. And since I feel like obviously you have a wealth of knowledge, and since most schools don't necessarily have like sales related majors, what do you think students could do today or this year or next year to really prepare them for a sales related position?
I mean, this is the beauty of sales, is that it's all around you. Literally, you could do anything that could prepare you for sales as long as you take the right track to it. So look, some of the best salespeople I've known were the best barista at a Starbucks, or were the best bartender at a bar. And they were the ones who were always building relationships with folks, and they knew the person's favorite drink, and they had an easy way with folks, and they were good listeners. And, like the skill set of sales doesn't require you to go too far above and beyond what your normal day-to-day looks like. Anything you do, it's just all about people, right? And so being able to connect with humans around you is the fundamental skill set. To the point of sales majors and more like preparation, I would say start by finding an industry you might be interested in. This is probably my best tip of like how to get into a career in sales. Find an industry that you're interested in, start researching, reading about that industry, and start consuming content so you start to learn. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you decide, I really like helping people find jobs. Like you're like, I like recruiting. I think recruiting's interesting. Cool. There's conferences called HR Tech that are out there that put out these like monthly magazines for people to read about HR stuff. You can go onto Google Alerts and just set up alerts for yourself around hiring or trends in the job market or whatever, and just start consuming content. Because you're only going to be able to build trust with someone as far as you're able to be a true expert in the industry. You can't like really BS your way through it. And so start to learn about an industry, start to research what makes an industry tick, and become an expert in it. And once you start to read it, then start to share it. And where I would share is on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a professional network where all hiring managers are. And so what I would do is I would let's say, again, we're going to stick to recruiting. Then let's say that you rewrite your LinkedIn profile. So it doesn't just say like student at so-and-so college, because that's what everyone's profile looks like. Maybe you write aspiring HR tech professional. Now people understand, oh, this person's interested in HR tech. Okay, cool. That teaches me something unique. And so that enables a world in which you're able to start to brand yourself as an expert in this space. As you read articles, you're going to start to realize that some articles are better than others. When you find an article that's good that you really like, share it on LinkedIn. Yeah, start posting on LinkedIn about this, about the content that you're seeing. Start sharing information about it. If what you're interested in is just, if you're not sure, by the way, as to which industry that you want to share about, just start sharing information about whatever you're interested in. It doesn't matter. You know, you don't need to have come to like the final conclusion of what industry you want to work in now, but just start sharing interesting stuff you're reading. So you got to do the work to read, right? So some work up front. Then you start sharing that content. And when you share that content, maybe put a little blurb in there about why you liked it. And now what you've got is a LinkedIn profile that consistently is sharing information about relevant, cool topics. The LinkedIn algorithm is going to distribute that to people that it thinks it's relevant to. And so again, using our recruiting example, you start sharing a bunch of articles about recruiting, they're going to start showing those articles to companies and people that are in the recruiting space, who are going to start to realize like, oh, there's this, you know, there's this person, Caitlin, out there, and she seems to be sharing a lot of stuff about recruiting. Seems like she's an expert in recruiting. Fast forward 6 months from now or a year from now, when you graduate and you're looking for a job, you can apply to every company that sells anything about recruiting and say, look, I'm an expert in recruiting already. I've been sharing all these articles here. You can check out my LinkedIn profile. And so they're going to be like, wow, this person knows our industry. They must have a lot of passion for this industry. And so you're going to have such a leg up over any other candidate who's just going to come in and say, hey, I graduated from school and I'm trying to figure out what to do. I think that personal branding is really important. And the formula that I just shared with you right now, which is to first collect or read articles, then to curate that list and pick the best ones to share, is a great way to get the ball rolling around how you can start to build your brand as an expert in an industry.
Yeah, I love that. I love the use of LinkedIn and the idea of kind of personal branding and framing the way that others can kind of perceive you as an expert already.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And honestly, I feel like that's applicable for most professions
Sure.
that students are interested in. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean
Um,
that's what I mean is that
yeah.
sales isn't just a skill set that you use in the profession of sales.
Hmm.
Knowing how to sell is the fundamental root of how you become successful in life generally. You know, like if you think about it this way, when you go on a date, I mean, you're selling, right? I mean, you're literally when you go on a date, why is it that you wear a good outfit? Why is it that you know, clean yourself up? Why is it that you don't just show up and start complaining right away? Why do you try to make a good first impression? What does it mean to make a good impression on someone? That's sales, right? When you walk into a job interview or any position in the world, what are you doing? You're selling, right? I mean, so like sales is the grease that makes the economy go, right? No matter where you are. If you're a manager and your employee is misbehaving and you want to sit them down, you don't want to be like, screw you, you suck, right? Because then that person's gonna be like, screw you, I'm not gonna work here. So that doesn't go that well. On the other hand, you don't want to sit down and be like, it's okay, you can keep misbehaving. That's not, you're fine, just keep doing what you want, because then that hurts the business.
Hmm.
So you need to reprimand the person and make them motivated, but you also need to make sure that they don't get like demotivated and get upset. How do you do that? That is sales. You know, that is being able to sell, to build trust, to build relationships, to be curious, to understand why is someone making that mistake, to work hard to figure out solutions. So everything around you has an element of sales in it. So, which is why I recommend that everyone take a job in sales, because then you'll understand how to deal with people, and knowing how to deal with people is really, really important in the world. So,
Yeah, I definitely agree. Um, I guess I guess too, like I'm wondering, like on a resume, is
yeah.
there anything that would like stand out to you or um yeah, in your opinion, for like a sales role, an entry
Oh,
level sales role, is
yeah.
there anything on a resume that would stand out to you?
Yes, somebody who's made something themselves and sold it. I think
Mm.
that always stands out to me.
Hmm.
I love folks who are entrepreneurial. I love folks who don't just sit there with ideas but actually do something with them. So I'll tell you one of the best candidates that I hired in a sales role. Um, there was this woman, and she was really passionate about making T-shirts that represented equality. So she went to school at USC, if you're familiar with the yeah, University of Southern California, the Trojans. So the mascot of the Trojans is basically this like, you know, white dude, because it's a Greek Trojan, right? And so what she did was she made t-shirts where the Trojan was like a black female or was overweight or what, you know, like basically represented different body shapes, different genders, different races. And so she made the Trojan into a ubiquitous thing, as opposed to just representing like, you know, a yellow dude with like a spear or whatever. Um, and and she didn't just make the t-shirts, but then she also would go and line up outside of USC, outside of game day, and sell them. So like when students are walking by, she would hold them up and be like, represent, you know, have pride of your school, but also represent diversity. And so she was selling t-shirts, and the money that she was making, it wasn't a tremendous, she would sell like 50 t-shirts at a time. She was making 10 to 20 bucks a t-shirt, or I think she was making the t-shirts for $10 and she was selling them for 20. So she was making $10 profit. And so she was making 500 bucks a week just selling t-shirts. And I was like, that's amazing. She had a vision for something that was wrong, right? Like, why is it that the Trojan is just like this dude that shows up? Like, why can't we represent the total population of USC isn't just like Greek dudes, you know, like the total population of USC is diverse, but this mascot is not. So that's really clever thinking. Then thought, let me make some t-shirts, then realized that other people had an interest in this, so she was able to sell them, then was actually out there selling them herself, right? And so I was just blown away by that. And so incredible, you know, it's a long story short, incredibly successful sales rep, and someone that I'm inspired by to this day. And so, you know, I'm looking for that. You know, that's like the X factor of folks, right? People who go and like, what do you write on a resume that's going to tell you that? You know, it's more in the cover letter. And so to me, the resume has to say, you know, the resume can say founder of, you know, USC Trojan t-shirts or whatever, who cares? But it's the story, right? The way she communicated that to me, the way that she helped me tie oh, this person is a visionary and a strategist and an executor, someone who actually gets shit done. And so that to me is the exact kind of person that I want on my team.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the fact that you value kind of the story behind the resume items, because I know not all companies view things that way. So it's really reassuring to know that, you know, a CEO of a company does care about those things. So thank you for sharing that.
I actually, Caitlin, I would actually say that every single hiring manager that I know cares about the story. It's just that they don't have time to hear it.
Right.
Right? It's not that they don't care. It's that they have so many applicants and they're so busy, they don't have time, which is why you need to connect directly with people. If you're going to submit a application for a job on like Indeed or Monster, Career Builder or whatever, you're not getting the job. Right? I mean, maybe on like a 1 in a million times you'll get it. You're not getting the job, right? Nobody finds great talent that way. What you need to do, let's say that you decide that you really want to work for, oh, I don't know, let's say you really want to work for Nike. You're like, Nike, I love Nike. I'm a big sports person. I want to work for Nike. Okay, great. What do you want to do for Nike? You're like, I'll do anything, but maybe I like customer support, right? I'll start with customer support. Okay, great. Go to LinkedIn. Find customer support, customer success managers, the people who you'd be reporting to on LinkedIn. They're there. Connect with them on LinkedIn. Send them a note that says, hey, I'm graduating in a year. I really love Nike. And I'm excited to get a job there. I don't want you to do anything with this note right now, but I just want you to know that like, I'm super excited. And 1 year from now, I'm going to hit you up for an interview, but I hope to take the next year to build a relationship with you so you can understand why you should hire me. So no ask, right? No, like, give me an interview. No, just, I'm connecting with you. I'm telling you why I'm connecting with you. And I'm going to show you that I'm worth. And then every time you share one of those articles about Nike, you tag the person in it and you say, hey, Caitlin, I thought you might find this interesting. It talks about Adidas and how they do customer support. Maybe this is something that you'd want to look into. Or, hey, Caitlin, I saw that Nike is, just released their latest earnings. And in the earnings call, Phil Knight talks about how, one of the most important things to Nike is their customer support team. And I wanted you to know that I believe this as well. Or, hey, here's a picture of me with my new Nike shoes. I'm a big fan. And so again, no one's asking for a job. No one's asking for an interview, but now they know who you are. So 1 year from now, 6 months from now, you can be like, hey, Caitlin, it's me again. Remember I said I'd want that shot for a job opportunity. Will you be able to take a meeting with me? That person is not going to say, oh yeah, just here's a link to the job. Get the person on the phone because they know you have a relationship, have a conversation, and then tell your story. That's how you get in through the door. So this whole idea of I'm going to wait till I need a job and in order to find it. No, you can't play the game that way. You got to think ahead, right? Like if I want a job, what are the companies I'm interested in? Who are the people that are responsible for making those hiring decisions? How do I connect with those folks in advance so that I have enough time? I like to say that life is like a series of deposits and withdrawals, which is to say that like when you meet somebody and you're like, hey, Caitlin, can you do me a favor? Can you write me a quick email introduction to this person? You're like, I don't really know who you are, and I'm not really interested in doing you a favor. But if I say, hey, Caitlin, let me do you a favor. I see that you're really interested in helping your students learn about sales. So how about if I come and I present to your students for 30 minutes and I share a little bit about sales? You're like, sure. Now I'm on this webinar, we're chatting, we're friends, everything's good. Let's say tomorrow I emailed you and I said, hey, Caitlin, that was so much fun. P.S. I've got a question. I'd really love to get connected to so-and-so. I see that you know them. Do you mind making me an intro? Because I've made a deposit into our friendship, into our relationship, I have the ability to ask for a withdrawal. And most of the time in the interaction when it comes to finding a job, people just look for withdrawals. But it's just like a bank. You can't go make a withdrawal until you've made a deposit. You got to put money in the bank first before you can take it out. And so the more deposits you make around you, you don't need to keep track. You don't need to be like, oh, let me make 3.5 deposits to Caitlin before I can make this withdrawal. Like it doesn't work that way. Just be good to people. Just help people, be curious about what would be beneficial to them, do it for them. And then you'll find that, again, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes later, that you'll have a little relationship with them, and then you go away, and then a month later you come back and maybe you make another deposit in the account, so that when the time comes that you want to make the real withdrawal, they owe you, so they'll be willing to do it for you. So get plenty of people in the world to owe you shit. It's a great hack of how to get your way around things.
I definitely echo the investing in kind of your network. That's definitely something that we try to encourage students to do. But I know it's a lot easier said than done, but I think what you've really laid out, using LinkedIn and all of that, it actually is quite easy. So hopefully students will do that, hint, hint. And I love the idea of really like setting yourself up kind of for success. Not anything's just going to drop in your lap and be good to go. So yeah, I really like how you explained that. It's great advice.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad that you found it to be helpful. And again, for the students who are on this, I didn't know any of this stuff when I was sitting in your shoes. Like I want to be really clear on this point. I did not know any of this stuff. What I was lucky to do was to surround myself with people who were willing to share their experience. And what I was smart enough to do was to take their advice and try it for myself before making a decision whether it was good or bad advice. And the thing I would encourage for each and every one of you is do not take my advice and say, oh, because Sahil said it must be good. Don't take my advice and say, oh, because this guy doesn't know what the heck he's talking about. Don't do either one of those things. Take the advice and just give it a shot. Try it. If it works for you, great. Then you found something that works for you. If it doesn't work for you, fine. You'll still learn something, right? And it's not like something bad's going to happen. I'm not telling you to go harm yourself, right? But I really believe that students who are able to make deposits, build relationships, and connect with folks while they're still in school and don't need a job are always the ones that have a job first.
Yeah, that's great advice. Actually, the next question I was kind of going to ask was if you could have given yourself advice when you were younger, your younger self, maybe in your
When you
20s,
were
like
young, is
early
what you mean.
20s.
When you are not old, is what you're
No,
trying to
when
say.
your younger self, like from senior year of high school to end of college,
Okay.
that kind of age range, what advice would you give your younger self?
Yeah, I mean, there's only two pieces of advice I would have given myself, and both I would not. I think I would have found it really hard to listen to as well. When I say this with a tremendous amount of empathy. That it's much easier at 32 to give this advice than it is to take it at 19. Um, but the first thing is you are the product of the 5 to 10 people that you spend the most amount of time with, which often are your closest friends. Choose them wisely. I mean, that to me is the thing that has always separated greatness from the rest, is having friends around you who are inspiring, who are doing the things that you want them to do. We tend to choose our friends based on shared interest of what we are doing today. I really like to drink wine. So I'm going to find a bunch of other friends that like to drink wine, and we're going to sit around and drink wine. And our shared experiences, we like to drink wine together. I really like to play poker, so I'm going to find people who like to play poker, and then I'm going to have my poker buddies. This is how we think about friendship. And I think that that leads to a world where you're doing the same thing today, or the same thing tomorrow that you're doing today. So the question I'd ask yourself is, who do I want to be tomorrow? What do I want out of life? And whatever it is that you want, look at your current friend circle and tell me if they actually have those qualities, if they're doing those things. If the answer to that question is no, get new friends. If the answer to that question, yes, you've got the right set of friends. But whatever your friends, I feel like most people that I know are motivated to do great stuff, but you get dragged down because of the friend group that you surround yourself with. In other cases, I know people who aren't that motivated, but get dragged up because of the friends they surround themselves with. I happen to be a little bit lazy. I am not like you're seeing me today as like the CEO of a company and you're like, oh, this guy, but like, trust me, I'm super lazy. Uh, I need to surround myself with great people that inspire me and push me to work hard, because if I don't do that, and there's no chance that I'm going to be able to push myself. I'm not great at pushing myself. So like I was extremely overweight for a while, and I surrounded myself with friends who were physically fit, for whom going to the gym was a good habit, and then I started losing weight and getting into shape. I used to party a lot, so I started hanging out with people who didn't party a lot, and then I stopped partying as much. So I feel like that's the number one thing I would say, is like, choose your friends really wisely, and choose your friends based on who you want to be tomorrow, not the person that you are today. So that's one. The second thing that I would say is I'm I'm incredibly I'm incredibly regretful that I didn't invest in building a network as soon as I did. And so this kind of goes hand in hand with the previous advice, which is like, all right, so you're telling me to ditch all my friends and you want me to make new ones. Where do these friends come from? The magic of the internet is that you can get connected to anybody. And so use platforms like LinkedIn, use platforms like Bravado to get connected to folks that are aspirationally the types of folks that you want to get to know. Make those your friends, make that your circle, really invest in the relationships around you. There are so many people I met early on that are like really, really cool. And I met them once and we hung out, we chatted, and like I gave them a card, or like we exchanged a couple emails, and then they disappeared. Such a waste, such a shame. You know, if you find someone that's really cool that you like, be their friend, invest in it. And what I mean by invest in it, again, make some deposits, send them something they like, send them an article that you think they would be interested in, check in on them, share some progress of something cool you've learned in class that, they probably don't have access to. Invest in those relationships. It'll make a big difference.
I love that. I definitely agree. Kind of along the same wavelength of regret. What would you say your biggest career mistake that you've made was, and or see people make maybe in kind of the sales profession, and how would you kind of address that?
Yeah, I mean, I've made a tremendous number of mistakes, so we could spend literally another hour discussing all of the mistakes I've made. But I'd say that there's two that stand out. One is when I started out in sales, I didn't understand uh, how much of a how much culture at a company matters. And I used to think it was all about job performance. So I would show up early, I'd leave late. I was the top rep in my class, in my company, whatever. Um, and I thought that that was what mattered. I didn't understand how much of an impact it is, like how you treat other people and like being a good team player and a good supporter to the rest of your company is. Probably screwed that up a number of times, to be honest with you. But I've learned later in life that it's so much more important how you treat people than even your actual work product. Like I mean, look, you can't be the worst sales rep on the team and get promoted. No, that doesn't happen. But just because you're the best sales rep on the team doesn't mean you will get promoted. That's the thing I didn't know. What I didn't realize is that it's actually, you need to be a good sales, let's say top 25%, right? You got to be good. But within the top 25%, then all of a sudden skill doesn't matter. Then a lot of like, how interested you are in the business and how much your teammates respect you and what kind of leadership skills you show. Those are the things that really matter. So I think that's probably something I screwed up that I would like to have back. Something else. Let's see. I mean, I was gonna say advice around management, but thinking through the crowd a little bit more and like early stage career advice. Another thing is when you get to a new job, when you get to a new company, and you get your foot in through the door, a lot of people are like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna work so hard. Like this is gonna be like I'm gonna put everything into it or whatnot." And then they like work super hard for a while and then like motivation tails off and then people start getting lazier over time. I think holding yourself accountable is really important. Setting like my wife and I do something now, we call it our quarterly check-in or quarterly review. We literally sit down every quarter and we write down our top 5 goals for ourselves that we're going to accomplish in the next quarter. And then every 3 months we meet, we sit down and we say, okay, how many of these 5 did I actually do? And I've had the same goal on there. If the same goal's been on there for more than 2 quarters in a row, then it's either this quarter it happens or it gets off the list. And I think that it's really important to hold yourself accountable that way, because you're not going to do everything that you have on the list, but you got to measure it. You got to track to see that you're doing the things that you say you do, because it's so easy to sit down and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to do all this cool stuff. And then, 2 months go by and you're still like sitting there playing PS4 or whatever, like it's so important. It's so important to hold yourself accountable. Again, you can see I'm lazy, right? So like, this is why I need systems like this. But it's not about whether you're lazy or not, right? That's not what makes the difference, right? This is the thing that's critical. It's about whether you can overcome your weaknesses. We all have strengths and weaknesses. I'm really good at some stuff. I'm really bad at other things. You're probably really good at some stuff. You're probably not so great at other stuff. It's, can you find a way to compensate for your weaknesses, and are you like aware and are you working on them? And do you really invest in your strengths to make sure that that's what shines through? So that's probably some advice I give.
Yeah, that's great advice. And it seems like, of course, self-awareness is something that is super important throughout life, but definitely in career development and professional development, it's definitely a key factor. So I echo what you say, and definitely agree. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Um, do you have any final thoughts before I open it up to questions?
No, I mean, my last thought is just I'm incredibly grateful for the folks who are here and listening, that you took the time to do this. I hope it was worth your while, and I'm happy to answer whatever questions you have.
Great, and we're very lucky to have you, so thank you so much. Um, any students have any questions? You can chat in the chat box and I'll read them.
Don't go all at once, though.
Anyone? Well, while we're waiting in the last few minutes, if no one has questions, I would like to offer an opportunity for you to kind of share a little bit more about Bravado, the mentorship program. I've been lucky enough to chat with Nancy about it, but I don't know if all these students are aware. So, do you mind kind of just briefly running through the mentoring bit of Bravado?
Sure. Yeah. The mentorship, the mentorship program that we run again, the next cohort is launching here in just a couple weeks. So your timing is perfect. Just go to Bravado, BRAVADO.co. So that is the, oh, I see there's a question here from Alexis specifically in regards to the mentorship program. For the mentorship, are mentees required to be in the sales profession already and out of college? No, the program is designed for college students. So if you're in college right now, Alexis, you are the perfect person for this. Go to Bravado, BRAVADO.co. And you can go from there and click on where it says mentorship and go check it out, fill out the application, and we will make sure that you find a mentor here shortly. And that seems is it Jair has a question. What do you consider a good quality to have when working with others? Man, that's a really deep question. I mean, I hate keep going back to the same well, but I really just think it's the best philosophy I've found is the one around deposits and withdrawals. The best quality you can have is to make as many deposits into others as possible. That's it. I mean, if someone needs help with something, help them. If you see someone struggling with something, help them. You see someone who is really proud of something, be proud of them. Like just be a supportive, good teammate. Be the sort of person that when people say your name, I like to think of it this way. Oh, I've got a funny philosophy on this. Imagine that tomorrow, you decide to drop out of your college or you decide to leave your job or whatever, right? Let's say that happens tomorrow. If that happens tomorrow, how many of your professors are going to be sad? How many of your professors are going to be like, oh man, Caitlin, she was such a great student. If you quit your work tomorrow, is your manager going to be like, oh no, we can't do this without Caitlin? Like, no, Caitlin, you got to come back. Or are they going to be like, thank God, finally got rid of Sahil. Jeez, can't wait to see his hindsight as he walks out the door. Look, that's a good litmus test, and be honest with yourself. Like, how many of your teachers would actually care if you stopped showing up to class? Not because it's their job to care, but because they would be personally sad that they lost this student. If the answer to that question is not that many or whatever, that's the thing to work on. That is the thing to work on. In every room, in every place that you work, be missed when you're gone. Don't be the person that people are relieved that you're gone because like you never did your homework, you didn't show up on time, or you sat in the back of the class and flicked things at the wall like I did. Like be the person that because that where that leads to, I can tell you where that leads to. Where that leads to is a world in which you're not important. Nobody cares. The people that are missed, the people that are valued, the people who get a shot to be a CEO of a company like I do, are the people that others want to back and believe in. And so if you don't have other people believing and rooting for you, you're not going to be successful. And I think that's the most important quality to have is being someone that gives rather than takes.
So essentially be a good person.
Yeah, and being a good person can seem nebulous, but it's actually not. Just like ask yourself the question, am I doing the right thing right now? It's actually not that hard. I wish it was hard because then we could blame something else for the reason we don't do it. No, we don't do it because we're selfish or we're lazy or we're bored or whatever. We just do it to ourselves. We don't do it to other people. It's not because like, oh, like being nice to Caitlin's so hard, so instead I'm just gonna be a dick. Like that's not the case, right? It's just I want to be a dick, so I don't care because it's funny or whatever. Like, no, it's not funny because now Caitlin doesn't respect me, and that's one fewer person I have on my side. Like seeing the world through that lens is what makes people successful.
Any other questions?
It's good. These were good questions.
All right. I think that is it. We're past 5. So thank you, students, for sticking around. This was such an awesome conversation. So thank you again for joining us. And this will be recorded, so I'll share it with other students. But for the
no
students
credit
that,
for them.
yeah, no credit for them. But for the participants who did show up, thank you. And until next time, yeah, that's all.
Amazing. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.